not necessarily in the works, but it was almost like a given. If Kenny Dillingham, Auburn's offensive coordinator, if he was going to leave, which certainly seemed very possible when Mike Norvell's name from Memphis started coming up for head coaching gigs, we kind of knew, and from talking to people, that if that were to happen, the first person Gus Malzahn would go after would be Chad Morris, his close friend who he's known since 2004. And I mean, as soon as I heard that Dillingham was leaving, I'm not kidding you, within like 10 minutes, I got a call saying, hey, the job is Chad Morris's, and they just got to work out the deal, and it's just a matter of time. And sure enough, about 24 hours later, they put pen to paper and got it all done. Yeah, I would be shocked if Gus Malzahn comes out and says, hey, I'm giving up play calling again, and flip-flops on that. I think it's going to be more of the same of what you saw this year. He's going to continue calling plays, but I think the difference with this hire is that he probably will be more willing to listen and implement ideas from Chad Morris than, say, maybe any of his other offensive coordinators he's ever had, including Rhett Lashley, Chip Lindsey, and Kenny Dillingham this past season. I don't think he's going to say, hey, Chad, you call the plays this season. I think Gus wants to continue to do that. I think they're going to try and work on improving their passing game, because it's obvious that the passing game has become the strength of this offense under Bo Nix, and they've got to get things a little bit more complex with their passing scheme to be able to move the ball down the field and score more points, which they kind of struggled with this season. Yeah, I haven't really heard anything about him seriously considering leaving. I think he's pretty comfortable at Auburn. His contract runs through, I think, 2021. I foresee him fulfilling that contract at the very least. And I think he's in a spot now where, one, I don't think he wants to leave to go be a head coach and try and build a program, so to speak. But two, if he were to be a head coach again, I think that maybe potentially that could be at Auburn someday, potentially. Let's say if things went completely south this past season, I think Kevin Steele would have been given a really hard look as a potential, not just interim coach, but potentially as the full-time coach. And I think he'd be willing to do that. But having said all that, I think he's happy being a defensive coordinator right now. I'd be surprised if anything changes between now and, the next signing day in February.
Welcome back. Second hour live, and we are underway. A number of guests to come, a number of awards going on. This is the week of all the awards. The big event tomorrow night in Atlanta, then obviously the Heisman. So far, these are voted on by the SEC coaches. Burrow and Brown taking the top two awards. Waddle, special teams. Bo Nix over Stingley for Freshman of the Year. Blankenship, Scholar Athlete. Thomas, blocking. Ogeron, Coach of the Year. No surprises there. Joey, standing in front of Johnny, won the Golden Arm. Big award there in Louisville. Matt Rule coming up shortly. Vince Thompson and Chris Lowe among the guests. Meanwhile, there's speculation that Steve Adazio is going to get the Colorado State job. Butch Jones and Aranda had both been mentioned for that one. And Bruce Feldman reporting that Willie Taggart is going to replace Lane Kiffin at FAU. Let's get back to the calls at 855-242-7285. James is calling next. Hey, James.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul.
Hey there.
I just wanted to put my 2 cents in on the Nick Saban debate or semi-debate. I think he's going to stay because he's not going to want to go out and this kind of season, having lost to Auburn, been down in the polls and in the committee and not making the championship.
Well, no, I don't think Nick Saban's going to leave. Listen, he missed last year in the championship game. This year he didn't get to the championship. And I think Nick Saban's pretty motivated to keep coming back. Now,
I agree. But I do hope one thing. I hope his health is good because during the Iron Bowl, I was swore he was going to have a stroke any minute.
He did look a little bit agitated. Hey, thanks for the call. Red Dog is calling next. Hey, Red Dog.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Hey, listen, all this talk about, obviously LSU is just, dominated everyone. But I wonder, what's your thoughts about how are they going to be, without Burrow? Because, it's one thing to assess the offense and say it's just been something that no one can. But I've watched a lot of ESPN reports about Burrow, and he's just, he's phenomenal. He's like Brady. So do you think that they will be so good without him? Even if they hate the same thing, do you think that they will be?
Well, no. Listen. This guy's a generational player. He may be one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. So the answer is no. But it doesn't mean that LSU will take a major step backwards. Their defense is good, getting better. They still have a lot of playmakers on offense. They've got 2 or 3 young freshmen who are outstanding. They're having a really great recruiting class. They just need to come up with a solution at quarterback, which is not easy to do sometimes.
Well, particularly at LSU, right?
Well, it's particularly everywhere. Alabama's had a run of 2 great quarterbacks in a row, but before that, they had a couple of bad years. Even though they won a national championship during one of those years with a graduate transfer who nobody thought was fantastic, he was certainly good enough. You don't have to have Joe Burrow, a Heisman candidate, to win. You just need somebody that's capable. And with Joe Brady there, you're probably going to have a step up on some programs. Hey, great to have you on. Eugene is in Louisiana. Eugene, thank you for calling.
Hey, Paul.
Hey there, buddy.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate watching your show. And my question is like an opinion. I would like to know who you think is the best team in the playoff picture.
I think it's LSU. My second team would be Ohio State. I know a lot of people are saying, well, what about Clemson? Well, what about Clemson? They're ranked 3rd for a reason.
Right, because I'm staying with a good friend of mine who is a Boomer Sooner, and I would pull for Oklahoma on Saturdays, but I think we'll have a split house come here on the 28th.
I agree with you, Eugene. Hey, listen, thank you very, very much. Really nice of you to call. A number of guests to come, including Matt Rule. Hank is up next. Hey, Hank.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Paul.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I was about spit my drink out when you was talking about Les Miles. Man, I never was a Les Miles fan. He won the BCS championship with Saban's players, and I never was a fan. Poor clock management, and that was hilarious. But I just wanted to give a shout out to all my friends for Florida, Georgia, Auburn, and the cordial Alabama friends, and a shout out to my buddies that are watching right now at the Foley Fire Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Scotty is in Florida. Hey, Scotty, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Well, I enjoy your show, but last night I really enjoyed the Belichick-Saban segment on HBO. It gave an insight to 2 men who have worked very hard most of their lives, and you got to see a side of them that you don't usually see. And it was very interesting.
Yeah, I was really, listen, I know Saban pretty well. I don't know Bill Belichick, but I found Belichick to be a very likable guy. Awkward, but very likable. He just, I can't remember which, I think it was a story about his dad, there, and I only saw half of it, so I'm gonna finish it tomorrow night when I get back in town. But
the second half of it was showing the more personal side where they were gave their daughter away at a wedding, and
oh wow,
you don't ever see that on the sideline, any aspect of that whatsoever. And I was just so glad that they did that.
Well, listen, I am too, and I mean, I think it was Belichick's story about his dad early on in the documentary that was just so funny. And listen, they're both awkward guys, but think about I've done a lot of interviews with people, and they with cameras around, and you tell them to ignore the cameras, but that's not easy to do. But I thought they did a fantastic job. Hey, thank you very much. Jimmy in Chicago is up next.
Hey, Paul. Yeah, one of your LSU fans called earlier in the show, and he mentioned something that I certainly noticed in the SEC championship game, and he was talking about the field. And I know, and I was very, felt bad to learn that Blaylock kid, the wide receiver for Georgia, he tore his ACL. And he was going up for a pass and came down, and Danielson was all over it. As soon as the play was over, he noted how the field turf had given, which forced, you could see it caused his, leg to kind of bend at a really bad angle. And the previous caller talked about Edwards-Helaire slipped 3 or 4 times. And I'm just wondering, you think that might be a concern to the NCAA people as coming into this semifinal game, because not only slipping, but the fact that, it's already been proven, there's certainly a chance for injury, and you don't want any of these players that have long-term prospects to suffer a really serious injury.
No, totally. I agree.
And I saw a report today in Breitbart. It was from the Advocate, and I was just wondering if Alabama politicians have as much passion for the college game as Louisiana. It's saying that approximately 95 out of 105 state representatives and 38 of 39 state senators in Louisiana took advantage of the perk that the state allows politicians to buy postseason tickets for either the SEC championship game, Peach Bowl, or a potential national championship game. 95 out of 100 and 38 of 39. And they said that 24 House members and 20 state senators have already bought end zone tickets for the national championship game. Do you have much knowledge of the?
Yeah, I remember having covered games in Louisiana and walking through the press box. It seemed like every state legislator had his own box. Can you imagine, though, Jimmy, how difficult tickets are going to be if it's LSU in New Orleans, which I think it's going to be?
Okay, yeah, and it did. I think it said here, and I mentioned this to you, and I always forget to ask you before you talk to Bill Hancock, because we've talked about this a few times about the just ridiculous face value prices of these national championship tickets. It says that they range, the median price is around $650 just face value for the championship game, and up to $900, and now it's even up to $175 to $300 just for the SEC championship. I mean, golly, these fans, financially, they make a lot of sacrifices, and then in the playoff, sometimes you have to decide and gamble that you hope your team wins in the semifinals.
But let me say, Jimmy, this is so much easier than last year when Alabama had Miami and San Jose or Santa Clara. I mean, this is as good as it gets if you're an LSU fan now. And really, for most fans in the field, even Oklahoma, it's not that bad. But I've been booking my flights, and it's a piece of cake compared to last year, which was pretty much a nightmare trying to get out to California. The prices were outrageous. Hey, thanks for the call. We are heading to a break. More to come, including Matt Rule. Your phone calls are next.
Alabama win on the road was huge, and I know Tua was banged up, and they had a young defense, but to really, to get over that hump, they beat us 8 years in a row. That was just such a huge victory for us to go through Tuscaloosa and do it that way this year. And we've got a lot of upperclassmen. We had four guys come back on the offensive line. We've got all these weapons all over the field, and to be a good quarterback, you're only as good as the people around you. And Burrows had the luxury of having not only a great play caller, with the addition of Joe Brady, Ensminger and Brady really kind of co-coordinating the thing. Kind of reminds me of Kiffin and Sark. You know, my brother played at SC under Pete Carroll, and they had that kind of a two-headed monster out there when things were going good. And, you know, Brady's just brought a huge offensive element to, you know, this team, which is loaded with upperclassmen and weapons galore. So that's been the funnest part of it. Is it's fun to watch these games when we used to watch LSU go, you know, 3 yards of cloud of dust, eye backfield stuff, double tight stuff, but now we can actually score some points, and it's a ton of fun. Well, just the evolution of the spread for sure. You know, I mean, giving him the opportunity to be dynamic opens up a lot of different throws for him, you know, quick throws, deep throws. We're in 4 wide, 5 wide receiver sets. I love when we motion Clyde Edwards out, out of the backfield. And, you know, he's won some one-on-one battles out there running routes too. And when he is in the backfield, we get him the ball as well. And so you have to cover really every blade of grass against them. And he ran this offense in high school. You know, he ran it under Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's a buddy of mine. He's told me a lot about him before he ever came to really be the player that he is at LSU. And he said, man, he's such a gifted leader. You know, he's got some eludeability. That's a word, I guess, that not a lot of people would use. Pocket presence is unbelievable, quick release, timing, and accuracy. But it's all, you know, the anticipation's there. He's got all the weapons, like I said. But being in this offense it's got to be so much fun for him. A year ago, you know, I think in the red zone he threw 5 touchdowns all year. This year he's thrown 28. I mean, so we're spreading it out and finding weaknesses in defenses where LSU's never done that before, and so we're utilizing our strengths is what we're doing.
Welcome back. We are here, and Coach Rule coming up in a few minutes. Live in New York on this Wednesday afternoon. Squirrel is up next.
Man, I got to get up to New York. It's been too long since I've been up there.
Come on up.
You know, Paula, you know, obviously I upset a lot of people yesterday, a lot of LSU people, and, you know, that bothers me. And first of all, I want to apologize to those people. But, you know, I heard several negative calls after I hung up, and Twitter was brutal. I mean, one lady wished that she said she hopes that I choke on a nut. So, you know, that's an evil form there. But I did a lot of self-reflection over the evening and thought about what you guys said. And I've kind of come full circle. You know, I think LSU is obviously a dynasty now, and they are the destination location. And, you know, I want to be a lot of people come on here and predicted they would win the national championship, but I want to be the first one on your show to actually congratulate them for winning the 2019 championship. And I want to congratulate them for the 2020 and the 2021, the 2022, 2023. And the only question I have for you, when you're going back and you're looking at a dynasty, does the dynasty start like the first game of the year, like against Georgia Southern, or would it have started against Alabama, or does it start after they dominated Clemson or Ohio State? When does a dynasty start for a program?
You know, Squirrel, I can't participate in this pettiness. I'm just going to have to sit this one out.
Thank you for taking my call. Aloha.
Thank you. Squirrel just cannot get over the fact that LSU has moved ahead of his Crimson Tide, can he? I'm baffled by him. Gene is in Louisiana. Hello, Gene.
Hey, Paul, how you doing? Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
I'm about the 6th-time caller, first time getting through.
I'm glad you made it.
I just want to say that I'm LSU purple and gold. I bleed purple and gold. I had season tickets in 1958, 59, and 60. And I was 10 years old. I skipped going to Halloween to go out and watch LSU play Ole Miss and see Billy Cannon's run.
Oh, my goodness. I wish I had seen that.
And then I happened to be there the night of the earthquake game. I was sitting at the top of the stadium with my back against the wall, and I thought the stadium was going to come down.
I bet. That is amazing.
Anyway, I want to talk about the perfect storm that brought Orgeron to LSU.
Okay, sure.
You know, he was at LSU early in defense, and he was hired at Ole Miss. And thank goodness Ole Miss didn't give him much time to set up a program, and they got rid of him. And then he went to USC as a defensive coordinator, and he got interim coach halfway through the year, and he went 4-2. And I said, well, man, he's going to get the job out there. And thank goodness they were stupid enough to bring in Sarkisian.
They were.
So Orgeron came back to Baton Rouge, and he's always been a great recruiter in Louisiana. And I was hoping he'd get the job, and then they started talking about Jimbo Fisher. And Jimbo Fisher, his program was going down at Florida State. I don't care what you say.
It was.
And thank goodness Texas A&M gave him a fortune to go over there. And then they were talking about Tom Herman, and thank goodness Texas wanted him. So it ended up Orgeron got it by default. And he's done such a good job, he stayed. And I've been following his career for a long time because he was one of the best recruiters LSU ever had. But just the perfect storm of how he got to LSU.
No, it really is amazing, and I'll give Joe Oliva credit for staying the course. He could have paid the price for Herman, who was the hottest coach in the country, and he chose not to. And Herman went to Texas, which, let's be honest, has not been a good experience.
No, I don't think it has. I think we got the best coach out of the three, to tell you the truth.
Well, at least for now you did. You're absolutely. Well, no, listen. Sometimes, unanswered prayers, unintended consequences. Take your pick on whatever quotation you want. Hey, thank you very much for the call. Matt Rule coming up shortly. Garrett is in Atlanta. Hello, Garrett. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, Paul. Thank you for taking my call. I got
Thanks
two
a lot.
quick questions. I'll be very succinct. Why was the committee so enamored with Georgia? Jake Fromm's been a pedestrian quarterback since Florida. LSU hung 37 on them, and they had a terrible loss to South Carolina. I'd like to get your opinion on how you think they finished fifth.
I have no earthly idea, and to me, they didn't deserve to be fifth. They, after a loss like that, I would have moved someone up. Whether I'm trying to remember who was next, Oregon or Florida or someone like that, but. I guess they gave Georgia credit for playing in a championship game and losing by, 25 points or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very curious. Hey, the other item I want to speak about, have you heard anything? I saw an article from a Sports Illustrated reporter or a contributor that talked about Alabama had a team meeting, and there's talking about several juniors possibly coming back for next year that McMillan, Dylan Moses, Henry Ruggs. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, listen, I've read that, but right now I'm maybe it's the old journalist in me, but I don't put a lot of stock in anything until reality. I mean, it's one thing to have a team meeting. It's one thing to say, hey, we're all coming back. First of all, I don't know who's going to be in these bowl games yet. Do you?
I don't, and I think that's a great question, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Saban handles that.
Well, he's got to be careful because the most important thing for Nick Saban is recruiting and to sending the right message out, and he can't come off too heavy-handed because he knows these guys have a big future ahead of them, and I have no doubt that he will recommend them getting a draft grade before they make a determination. I was with a couple of former NFL players and college players this morning on the Mike Greenberg show, and none of them felt like anyone in the first three rounds should play in a bowl game. There's just no upside. There's nothing to be gained. Poodle is up next. Good afternoon. Did not hear Poodle bark. How about Johnny in Arkansas? Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call. First-time caller. I really enjoy listening to all the different personalities that call in the show.
Thank you.
Just one quick comment from you, please. Sunday, the wife and I decided we was going to go to the Tennessee game, to their bowl game.
Right.
And I said all day, hey, we're not going to jump the gun. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. And there was several sports sites that had Tennessee playing Louisville in the Music City Bowl in Nashville. So we jumped on the internet and got tickets to go to Nashville to watch Tennessee and Louisville play. And I had no more got the tickets bought, and it comes out with a twist to the bowl game. I was just wondering if anybody else has called in and said anything about them jumping the gun too early, and I'll hang up and listen to your comment.
Yeah, listen, all I can say is I'm sorry that happened. You have to be careful. I know the Bowls changed teams quite a few times. And by the way, I don't think they've gotten their draft grades yet, but they have a pretty good idea where they are. We are heading to a break. Matt Rule coming. Welcome back to our program. We are live in New York today, and it's great to have you with us. And it's the awards season, and certainly our next guest getting a lot of coaching awards, but that's not what he's about. He's about his team and the amazing turnaround at Baylor. Truly one of the most remarkable, I think, in college football history. Coach Matt Rule rejoins us. He was with us about a month ago. Coach, thanks so much for your time. I know it's a crazy week with recruiting and getting ready for the holidays and bowl games, but congratulations on your year.
Thank you very much for saying that. We're proud of what we did and hope we can get one more here in a couple of weeks.
Listen, I know there's a little bit of disappointment losing the way your team did, but I thought your congratulations to Oklahoma. Listen, I know that's it's expected on one level, but a lot of coaches don't go to the extreme that you did by making that so public. You mind talking about that for a second, because it really showed what this is all about.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Lincoln Riley, and I have a lot of respect for those players on that team. And when we lost that game, Paul, it was like someone puts their hand in your chest and rips your heart out. Don't I'll be gracious, but I can tell you that hurt, and it hurt our team, and it hurt our players. But I think it's my job as a coach to be classy at all times and to show our guys what it means to be a true competitor. And I grew up playing for Coach Paterno. I'm one of those guys. I grew up respecting the great coaches, the Vince Lombardis, the Bear Bryants, and they didn't engage in that stuff. They were classy. They were gentlemen coaches. And I think for me and the generation of coaches that are here now, we have to protect the game, and we have to do things the right way. And so congratulating them, I would have rather that they had to congratulate us, but congratulating them just seems like the right thing to do for the game and for young people.
And what does it mean, Coach, to get this program not only to the success? I mean, you had College Game Day, you had the eyes of the nation on you so many different times, but you're going to the Sugar Bowl, which where I grew up in the South was really the ultimate reward for a really good season.
Well, that's a bucket list item for me. I was a Penn State fan, 1982 season. They went down and played Georgia and Herschel Walker and won that game and won the national championship. And so much is made now. You hear this kid's not playing in the bowl game, that kid's not playing in the bowl game, and everybody has their own story. I'm not here to judge anyone, but there's 115 other guys on that team that are dying to get to that game. And I think for us, the chance to go out and, we talk so much about what you can get and can you get into the college football playoff? Can you win this? It's always about the tangible rewards. But this is a game that people say they love. And if you love to compete, I mean, what greater end to a season would there be than to go to the Sugar Bowl and play a team like Georgia? For me to have a chance to coach against Kirby Smart, if you're a competitor, you love that. You live for that. And so I couldn't be happier for our team. Obviously we wish we would have won that game, but this is a fitting end to a great year, and we just hope that we can find a way to play well.
I want to pick up on that because I was on a program this morning, Coach, on ESPN with several NFL players, former NFL players, and they all said the same thing, that if they were a top draft choice, they wouldn't play in a bowl game. I know you understand that. You've coached in the NFL, but I would like to hear you explain the conundrum that many players face right now, though, because of the risk of injury versus the reward, like you said, of going to a big-time game.
Yeah, I think the guys that are, the guys that are absolutely definitely guaranteed to be in the top 10, top 15, I can certainly understand them saying, Coach, I'm nervous about playing this game. But I don't ever hear anyone saying, hey, we're going to sit out, the first game of the year against, Abilene Christians. What's the difference? It's the same game. And so, I understand it. If a player comes to me and says it, I would support them 100%. But there's a lot of other players that aren't going to be, first-round picks, that aren't top tier. And I think the hardest thing that I'm learning is I help these guys is they have so many people telling them, hey, you're going to be this, you're going to be that. And there's only so many spots. And so I think if you're guaranteed it, I understand it. But you know what? I think you're going to look back someday and you're going to remember the games that you played. You're not going to remember the games you didn't play in. And the money comes and goes, but really college football is your last time to ever really be on a true team and to go play with your boys. So I'll support guys no matter what, but I love when I see guys come out there and play that last game with their teammates in the bowl game. I think it's really special.
Talking to Coach Matt Roll. Coach, you mentioned Coach Paterno, and I know you grew up in the New York area. You gravitated to Penn State, and I'm saddened, and I know you are even more than I, that there's so many people either want to ignore the legacy of Joe Paterno or tiptoe around it. But knowing him a little bit, and always proud to go to that school to cover games when I was covering Alabama, and his relationship with Coach Bryant and others, what was it like to be in his influence and to be a part of that program?
Well, he was as tough as they came. I mean, he would push you and he would drive you to be the very best, but he expected you to be great at everything in your life. And I understand where people are coming from. They're trying to go back and think through what happened, what didn't happen. Here's all I know: there are hundreds and thousands of players just like me that played for Coach Paterno whose lives are better for having been there. And I don't know what happened, later after I was gone. I don't know what happened in some room or some conversation, but I do know that during my time there, every decision he made was always about the player and was always about doing things the right way and to win with honor. And so I was lucky to play for him. He was as charismatic a man as I've ever been around. He would say something to the team before we went out to play, and it was before we actually left and went to the stadium. I remember we played Ohio State. They had Eddie George, a great football team, and he called us into the team room before we headed over to the stadium. We're still at our facility, and he went off and he said, "I'm tired of hearing about them. Let's talk about us and let's talk about our team." And it was so passionate. Our team went out there and played probably our best game that we've ever played, that we had to play up until that point. And he just had a way to motivate people and had a personality that made you want to play for him, and I certainly miss him.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but we've all watched you, some of the turnarounds that you've been a part of and have been the head coach at Temple and now this Baylor. And listen, you obviously know what you're doing and you've been quite successful, but what type of approach do you take? I mean, you took over a desperate situation. A lot of us, let's be honest, thought you were crazy to take the Baylor job.
I think I just think that I wasn't really afforded. My first opportunity was at Temple, where I had been, turned the corner, and I think when you're making these decisions, when you're going to go find which program you want to go to, you have to make sure that they understand the way that you're going to do it, and that your path, your process is in line with the athletic director, with the president. And I had an athletic director, Mac Rhodes, that said, "Hey, I want you to do it the right way." And so, I took that opportunity, and it wasn't easy, but we've gotten to a certain point and knocked on the door this year of winning the championship and couldn't quite do it. And that's really what happened my third year at Temple. College game day came to Temple. We went to the championship game. We lost the championship game and came back the next year and found a way to win it. So, but I tell you what, it's been hard, but when you look back in hindsight, it was certainly rewarding what we've done, and I'm hopeful that we can just keep growing as a program and take a couple more steps.
I know the school went to great lengths, Coach Rule, to make sure you were protected with a long-term contract in case it didn't work out immediately. Of course, that wasn't all that long ago, and now naturally your name comes up for a lot of jobs, especially NFL jobs. In terms of how you view all that, I know there are representatives that deal with suitors, but how do you approach the future, knowing that after what you've done here and have done at Temple, you're very much in demand?
Well, I think the first thing I always try to do is be really, really honest and transparent with everybody and my players, right? So, I can't always comment, outside, but I always tell my players the truth, because the minute they feel like I'm not, if I'm going to talk to them about whether they're going to play in a bowl game or not, or come out early for the draft, then they better be able to ask me, Coach, hey, what's going on with you? And so I think that's the first thing. And I think the second thing is I love college football. I mean, I think you can tell, like, I have great reverence for this part of the game. And so I think I'm probably a fit to stay there. But when NFL teams have called me in the past, sometimes they label it as an interview. But I think there's, you kind of sit down and you say to them, okay, well, what are you thinking? What do you talk about? And so far when I've done that, it hasn't really been quite a fit for me. I'm one of those guys. I like recruiting. I like the competition part of recruiting. I like getting guys in there at a young age and watching them develop. I like watching guys walk across the stage. And it's just a different deal in the NFL. And so I won't say that I'll never do it. I won't say that when NFL teams call me, I won't listen to them. But I really believe that I'm a college football coach, and I have a really good thing going at Baylor. And so I would expect that we would be able to stay here for a long time.
Well, Coach, I hope you do, because it has been remarkable watching what you have done with that program. And I know the Sugar Bowl seems like an incredibly big deal, but as close as you came to the playoff this year, I'm sure you know that the ceiling is a little bit higher. Thank you for being with us, Coach. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Great to talk to you. Thank you.
You got it. Wow. I can't get enough of this guy. He is so good and so cool. Just listening to him is so inspirational. We'll take a break. More to come. Thanks to Matt Rule for being with us from Baylor. We are back.
At Auburn was to drive up to Huntsville, Alabama, and pick up Coach Chiswick and drive him to the High School Coaches Association clinic. And I'll distinctly remember I took the wrong turn, and Coach Chiswick was in the passenger side, and Trooper Taylor was behind me. And so I cut a U-turn on the middle of the road, and Trooper Taylor still gives me crap about that. You can never cut a U-turn in the middle of the road with the head football coach of an SEC school, but that's when I knew I was going to be able to make it in this thing. You have to make tough decisions, and at that point I had to get him to where he needed to be, which was at the coaches clinic. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I got to decide what's important versus what's urgent. Not everything that's urgent is important, and not everything that's important is urgent. So that's what we're deciphering through. The most important thing for me was yesterday getting in front of my football team and putting my arms around them and clearly portraying who I am as a person and who I am as a football coach to them. And then today it's been, presenting myself to our alumni, to our fan base, to everybody that touches Mizzou football. And then, I got my phone on me right now. I've been texting, calling, recruiting. I'm going to be on a plane later tonight and getting in people's homes. And that's what we got to do. And as we're doing that, then I've got to formulate the plan for what we're going to do with our staff and how we're going to fill that in and how we're going to continue to move Mizzou football forward and how we're going to compete for the SEC East. And at the end of the day, that's why they hired me to do this job. It's so we can compete in the SEC East. And we all know that if you're competing in the SEC East, then that means you're competing at the national level. Well, we've got a full recruiting staff. They're still in place, and there's guys here still that are helping me recruit, and that's what I'm leaning on for them to do right now. And then I got to do the heavy lifting. I mean, they don't pay us this kind of money for us to delegate it to other people. That's our jobs. So I'm out there in recruiting, and that's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what I'm going to get done. And coffee's not that.
That's the whole thing. Welcome back to the program. Vince Thompson will join us in a couple of minutes. We are looking forward to... anyway, I was just waving at a friend of mine so he didn't walk in our shot here. 855-242-7285. And let's get back to the calls and talk to Bob. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. I'd like to talk about three quarterbacks right quick. The first, Joe Burrow. What a guy with class. When the game was over with Georgia, Coach O handed Joe the game ball, and Coach Joe handed it back. And he was asked in an interview why he did that. He said because he deserved it. I mean, that guy has some class. His parents got to be proud of him. The next guy is the quarterback at Oklahoma who stuck it out at Alabama, and he showed some real class. I'd love to have a guy like that working for me. And the third quarterback, and I'll let you go, is a quarterback that played in the Iron Bowl with Alabama. And tell people from Alabama they don't have anything to worry about. That kid's going to do a great job next year, with or without Tua. So thanks for listening to me, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Nice to talk to you.
Appreciate that, Bob. Let's check in with Dino, who's in Phoenix. Hey, Dino, thanks for the call. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, where you at, baby? Hey, thank you for taking my call. And
Thank
Paul,
you.
What a great time to be an LSU Tiger, man. I mean, it's just and Paul, I don't want to rub it in, but I'm in Phoenix, as you know, here, 60 degrees today, not a cloud in the sky, and about 10% humidity. So for the rest of the country, Paul, I'm a native New Orleanian, but man, when I retired out here, I just love it, fan in my backyard now. But Paul, I want to thank you for being so gracious and such a great host. I like listening to you. You're fair, and man, you had Jimmy Burrow on last week. I tried to get in, but thank you for that. I really enjoyed listening to.
Oh, he was great. He was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, he was. He really was. And Paul, look, I've got several friends of mine that are Alabama fans. They're very gracious. You know, I mean, when we kid and we joke, we get along. And like I said, I've been a lifelong LSU fan. So happy this year. But I'm glad you put a guy like Squirrel in his place. I know that the majority of Alabama fans are good people, very, very good people. And I've met a bunch of them and partied with a bunch of them. But a guy like Squirrel, man, Paul, for lack of better words, what an ass. You know, I normally don't talk like that, but I'm glad you handled that guy and put him in his place. You know, it's LSU's year. I hope they continue. I pray they continue. And I just want to say as a final goodbye, go Tigers, baby. Go Tigers. And one more thing, Paul. I really worried at first about when the selection committee came out. I thought they were going to I was kind of apprehensive. You know, LSU played great. I said they deserved that number one seeding. But I really thought they were going to put Ohio State number one. And, you know, when they interviewed Joe Burrow, too, he said they will play him anytime, anywhere, just like Coach O. Well, even tee it up on a gravel lot. I thought that was, you know, that shows a true competitor, a true warrior. But, Paul, thank you again, and go Tigers, baby.
Thank you very, very much. Great to have you on. Grace is up next. Hello, Grace.
Hey, Paul, this is Grace. I'm from Birmingham. I'm an Auburn fan, and I've just been put into a state of shock after reading the Birmingham News that Malzahn has went out and hired this Arkansas ex-coach.
Yeah, Chad Morris. He was hired yesterday.
Yeah, I wanted Malzahn's ASS to go back to Arkansas a couple of years ago. I'm
So you're
highly
not.
upset.
Well, I mean, listen. Don't forget. I mean, he's only the offensive coordinator. I don't think he's going to call plays. So I don't think he can do. I don't think he can do nearly the damage he did at Arkansas.
Well, look at Auburn. We just lucked up in the game against Alabama. I mean, I was pulling for us, but Gus called a timeout right before we were. Who was that? LSU or Florida? Somebody that it should have went into the halftime. But like a dummy, he called a timeout. And then they gave the other team time to score. I've been wanting his ass, to go back to Arkansas.
That's okay. Say whatever you want.
I can't take it no longer. Okay, look on the sidelines. When he should be really looking serious to call a play or something, it's like somebody took candy away from him. He's just biting at his nails and up and down. I can't take it. It's time for him to go.
Grace, thank you. Yeah, that's Auburn fan. Gus Malzahn has just beaten Alabama, and she wants Gus Malzahn to go. I don't know what you have to do to make fans happy these days, but I know one thing. We will take a short break.